Bam, how's it going? Welcome. And today I've got a brother of mine. Some of you know him, but if you don't, his name is Andrew Taurai. And I don't want to waste time by introducing him. I want him to introduce himself. Brother, how's it going, Andrew? Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me again. I'm excited to be here and looking forward to this intriguing conversation that I'm set up for.
Yes. I want to start off by saying congratulations. You have done what many cannot do, and you have journeyed, and you are one of those people that I can say that I've been watching for a long time, doing what you do, and eventually somewhere else along the ways, people actually recognize you and they put you in an office, right? So congratulations, brother, and thank you for taking leadership into a different realm. So some of you don't know what Toastmaster is. Andrew of late has taken office. This is you're in your first year technically, isn't it? So you run for a year.
Yes, correct.
Okay. But for some of you might not know what Toastmaster is all about. Andrew, let's start off with talking about Toastmaster. What is Toastmaster?
Toastmasters is a 98-year-old program that has been across the globe and existing, starting off from the United States of America, but now in over 145 countries. And the program essentially is there to help people with the fear of public speaking to find their voice and comfort and confidence in speaking in front of an audience, whether in an interpersonal conversation or in presentations in the working or in business space. And ultimately, we want them to use their voice to become leaders, and leaders who are influential in change in the spaces they find themselves in. So very many times we find people from different walks of life who don't have the confidence to speak in front of an audience, but then we almost outcast them. And in this case, Toastmasters is saying, bring those people who have the fear, who stutter, who've got a speech impediment and want to improve themselves, want to be able to find their confidence in speaking in front of an audience. And then let's help them with that particular unique program that has evolved over 98 years across the world in order to ensure that they become leaders in their sphere of influence as a result ultimately. So that's what Toastmasters is.
I want to come back to you, Andrew, and I am wanting to talk about everyone in my sphere of Toastmaster. They're always talking about giving their time and their resources too, driving to places, advertising and things like that. So it's a volunteering organization. Is that correct?
Correct. Precisely so.
Okay. So if it is all about volunteering, I am going to give my time, and there's tools and skills that I am going to learn along the way. From your perspective, coming from the ranks of nobody, literally, when you're 19, and rising up all the ranks to where you are at the moment, having to live in two different countries that I know of. I know you stayed in Zim, I know you're now staying in South Africa. And you have had also the opportunity to travel the world. Where has Toastmaster taken you?
I think the crux of it is, for me, getting to a particular point where you're exposed. Now, I think if we want to unpack that unpacks it from even my personal life, just my ability to think and be agile in my approaches in terms of whether my personal and my professional development. Toastmasters has taken me there. Now let's talk of it from a personal perspective. I think just my analytical thinking and problem solving skills have taken a great hike because of my particular involvement within Toastmasters, particularly when you take on leadership. You're solving problems, and you always need to solve problems within a particular setting. Now, for me, it's the Toastmaster side. Being voluntary means you can't throw money at a problem. You've got to think, how can I be more resourceful to solve my problems? And that skill is something that you can never take away. And to be frank, that skill has already become a skill that I've monetized in my work, in my business that I run, and how that has come together is actually emanating from the leadership opportunities I got in Toastmasters. Let's talk of, professionally in that particular setting. I've been able to then set up my businesses and also get, let's call it, influence people to come on board and buy into a vision. And in that vision that I no longer serve on my own, but I've got people who believe in that vision and want to drive it together. And we're effecting social and economical change as a result of that. And I think those two phases of experiences have already allowed me an opportunity to then recognize what my essential contribution to the community is, or to the continent is at large, as that as the reach has gone that far right now, and then be able to recognize how that is becoming more like a return on investment on my experience. So yes, I give up my time to learn the skills. I sometimes give up my resources to then be able to appreciate and, of course, get to experience some of the things that I need to do in order to apply it. And I share with people that for some people, they need 30 years of experience working in a corporate to be able to understand how a business runs. I didn't have that. But in less than 8 years, I've been able to gain that skill and learn how to successfully run a business, profitable business in that matter. So I think looking at it from that perspective, that is, just the crux or the nature of how Toastmasters has catapulted my personal and professional journey in that regard.
So we just know you as the CEO of Toastmaster. I mean, we just know you as Toastmaster guy. So yeah. We didn't know that you actually run another business. But seeing that we invited you here and we're always talking about business and real estate here, let's dive into that conversation, right? And I might be just, that previous comment I made, it might be just for people that know you from Toastmaster, like, this guy is a Toastmaster guy, but you actually have another business. And that's what I wanted to bring across here. So I'm a volunteer. I'm a volunteer in my local church. There's lots of things that I do in my local church. The benefits that comes through there, exactly to what you're talking about, it has helped me in my business. It has helped me to be better with people and things like that. So there's many organizations in which you can volunteer. The point here is find the one that speaks to you. Right. Let's come back to your business. What was your first? How did you make your first money? Like first money? Yeah.
I'm debating. Do I twist the truth here and just take it a step further? Actually, I think the first monies that I made that I'm really not necessarily proud of, but I'm really I chaff myself when I think about it many of the times. It's when I was in boarding school in high school, and it was a mixed school. So of course, I was one of those people who were beaten up in grade 1 or 2 for trying to make sure that I've got a neat handwriting, that the O's are O and the whatever, the Q's are Q's. And ultimately, I got to be a matchmaker. So I got to be the broker between the guys and the girls, and I would volunteer my services so I could broker your relationship. And then also, in addition to that, I had additional services like making sure that I buy the right card for you. You give me the money, I'll buy the card, I'll write the caption on the card, and I'll make sure that I do it. And what happens beyond that, I've done my part. It's now yours to play your game. And I also used to give, I think I used to give relationship advice. I think to the guys that I saved, I know your relationships have ended, but I think I still need your endorsements on this one. So that's how I made my first monies in boarding school, brokering relationships.
What is your success rate? Because I ran a similar business. It wasn't my first business though. And that business is still out there, 15 years, 100% success rate so far. What's been your success rate?
I don't remember a relationship that I brokered and it failed. I suppose there's one or two, but it's one or two out of I don't know how many. So, and it wasn't my fault. I mean, I pride myself in delivering results, but I
Yeah.
suppose I can't do everything for you. So it's one of those. But let's be humble and say at least 95% of the relationship I brokered lasted at least 3 months.
Cool. I want us to continue on the conversation of business. I started on a very light note of how you started off your making your own money there, but great. What is your business now, and why are you focusing on this business compared to anything else? I mean, Toastmaster, yes, you're a volunteer. You're doing great there. So what is your business now, and why did you choose that business?
So currently, not currently, but I am focused on the Entrepreneurs Hub. It's called the eHub. And the eHub focuses on helping a corporate expert transition into entrepreneurship. There's so many people who are in corporate that love what they do, or at least love the field they are in, but they are facing challenges that because of the limitations of the corporate world, and or they're facing the limitations of what they can do, and they don't have the creative license to do what they also think they can expand on. And so they're feeling stifled, and they want to transition into running a business or consultancy or entrepreneurship. And so we are the conduit to help you transition from corporate to entrepreneurship. And the eHub simply guides and facilitates that process through effective mentorship, guidance, and of course, processes and training that allows you to be more effective in that. And speaking of ultimately why that became something that was prominent in my amongst many other things that I do, it was because I realized that we've got great levels of unemployment in our communities, in our countries. I mean, reaching close to almost 40%, if not more now. And as a result, we've got more and more people coming into the system, graduating, but then waiting for an opportunity to serve and work in an organization, but they're not finding it, and yet they've got the skill. And so my interest was particularly to say, let's save the plight of the African and ensure that we alleviate ourselves from the social ills. We've got crime, abuse, and many other social ills that we're facing in this day and age that are as a result that we can almost trace back to unemployment. But let's keep people employed, and employed in the sense of them starting employment opportunities, whether it being an IT student starting out with web development or anything along those lines. Ultimately, they will expand their services and they'll be able to employ other people. And so that becomes something that is hugely impactful to the organization. It saddens me. It pains me when I see people or smarter age mates who are sitting at home with their medical degrees or their engineering degrees, and they're just sending out CVs minute in, minute out, and no response. And yet they've got so much value that it can contribute. And some that are already in these workspaces, they're feeling stifled. There's workplace bullying. It's just not the healthy space for them mentally. And they are feeling stuck because that's their only way to get a committed income. And I want to alleviate that in order for people to express themselves fully, professionally and personally, which allows our communities to grow and our countries ultimately to get to a better level through their economic activity. So that's particularly why I am focused on the Entrepreneurs Hub and what it does.
Yeah. Well, what are some of the things that you see? Maybe give us two, maybe.
Yeah.
People that are transitioning. I've transitioned myself from being an employee into an entrepreneur. Though these days I don't look at it that way. I just look at it being unemployable. So having transitioned from being an employee into that space, there are many challenges that lots of people face, which they may not have foresight of. Right? Maybe give us two things of some of those things that people don't even think about, and then when they see it now, when they're actually entrepreneurs, they're like, oh, So I'll give you an example. The other day I was saying to my wife, Now I think I know why I used to enjoy working at Barclays. The aircon is amazing. We need to have an aircon at home. It's a very small little thing.
Yeah.
But if you are working in a little office at home and it is 32 degrees, it's unbearable. You can't work, you can't function, right?
Right.
So mentally, you just can't get there. I mean, I make fun of that, but it's actually not. It's employee wellness. If you're at the employer, to be employee wellness. So give us two things, maybe that can help someone who's already seeing this and they're like, I'm wanting to go and be an entrepreneur. I should worry about this. And I'll give my two as well.
All right. So I think the first thing that I always highlight, and I come across this, is that your qualification is not enough, right? In the workspace, when the moment you are being, in fact, as we ask you to supply your CV and everything, your key thing is to list all your qualifications. I graduated this, I've got this degree, I've got this master's, I've got this doctorate in this. In business, that paper is just but the foundation, or at least the basis of what it is. It is almost like an endorsement. That's more what it is. It is not the business. And so when I take in entrepreneurs or professionals, the first thing they want to sell me with their qualifications, I'm like, I can assure you that you might find that almost 50% of the people that you're possibly going to do business with, they don't care about the qualification. They care about what you can do for them. Right. And so the first thing is that qualification is not the be it and all. It is just a basis, a starting point to say, okay, this is my flag to show you that I have an idea of what I'm talking about. The second thing that I always also encourage and work with entrepreneurs is when you're transitioning from corporate to an entrepreneurship, particularly in corporate, other people, it's easy to shift the blame. Once you get into entrepreneurship, you've got to take accountability for anything and everything. That includes what your customer or your client is expectant of, or when they change their mind about what they want. You've got to take accountability for it at some form. In that way, you're going to be able to serve your client, who is going to be your salary or income at the end of the month or end of the year, depending on how you're going to work it out. So the critical thing there is to take accountability for your journey or for whatever happens within the business setting. At work, you can pass it on to the manager, you can pass it on to the other department. Now that you're running your business, or now that you're considering running your business, be prepared to take accountability for the work that you need to do. Those are my two.
Yeah. So ladies and gentlemen, if you're thinking of venturing into entrepreneurship, in the comments, let us know what are you going to be doing. The eHub is there to help you on your journey. But again, if this information is helping you, this is the time where you need to smash the like button. But Uncle Andrew has given you some tips here, right? Two of them. In my view, these are soft ones. He was being nice to you. I am going to be that other uncle who's going to give you the hard ones, right?
Yeah. You've got to have the balance, the bad and good police in that.
Let's assume you are married, right? Because a lot of people that want to venture into entrepreneurship, they go home and they say to your baby, this is what I want to do. And they go into it and then things don't work out. Right. So the first one for me is, this is Uncle TJ now talking. The first one for me is, before you actually leave your job and going into entrepreneurship, make sure that you've got at least 6 months of savings. So look at in your entire budget, right? If you can scale it down, scale it down. You don't need 2 cars. You're not going to be going to work. And maybe you're going to be working from home. So the other BMW, you don't need it, right? If you can pay off the car, great. Do that. Make sure that all of your expenses are at a minimum. And then have the 6 months. Because guess what? Everyone else who is promising you the gig, who is promising you the contract, who is promising you everything that they are promising you whilst you are at the job, the moment when that company of yours is running, they are going to be thin air. So that's tip number one. Uncle TJ giving you that one. So 6 months of whatever your expenses are, you need to have it. Why 6 months? Because at least in your 3 months, you'll be able to figure out this is working, this is not. If it's not, you can then pivot in the next 3 months. So you got survival. You're not having tough conversations at home with your missus or your mister, whatever that you've got. If they are men and men married together, what do they call themselves? Doesn't matter. Let's move on. Thank
you.
Right. The second one that I'm going to give you, again, coming from Mango TJ, is around starting off a business. A lot of people have a business plan and they want to start the business when they've left the employer. I would say it's too late. A lot of people in South Africa, they work 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock. I'm going to be saying to you from 6 o'clock to 12 o'clock, what are you doing? That's when you need to start your side hustle. Get your side hustle to get you to 50% of your income, if even 100 of your income, or even 100% of both of your income, Mr. and Mrs., or make a target of, let's say, 200%. Then you become an entrepreneur. The biggest thing that a lot of entrepreneurs fail is not because they don't know what they're doing or the trade that they've gone on to do. It is the pressure of putting food on the table. If this year is not sorted out in terms of putting food on the table, you can't be creative. That's Uncle TJ speaking. But yeah, let's move on.
He's been bent before. You can tell Uncle TJ has been bent before and wants no one else to be bent.
Let's speak of the nicer things, Andrew. Now that you're in business and your business is doing well, what are some of the things that you're seeing now that are becoming that are benefits to you that you are seeing? I mean, we have the luxury of having this conversation. If we were employed, this would have not been happening at this time of the day, right? To me, it's a benefit. It's doing what I want to do with people that I want to do it with. But over to you. What are some of those businesses? You're a Toastmaster. You are running your own business. So what it's not doom and gloom like what Uncle TJ just mentioned.
Exactly. Now. Yes.
There's other things.
I think the beauty of it is being able to not only drive a certain narrative based on your viewpoint, right? I think we underestimate the impact of your own footprint or your brain print, in a particular industry. So if you're an artist, whether it's music, imagine having to record that music under somebody and then that somebody releases it as their own. And your footprint is not there. I think when your footprint is somewhere, I think that's, for me, is an element of fulfillment that I've contributed something. If you look at that desk, I built that desk, or I painted that house, whatever it is that you're doing. Secondly, you already talked about the ability to be flexible with what you want to do and when you want to do it. For me, I enjoy my travels. I enjoy my flexible engagements. I think there is a side of where we say entrepreneurship, you don't necessarily have an 8 to 5, a 9 to 5, but because I'm enjoying what I'm doing, I don't mind a 9 to 9, or I don't mind a 9 to midnight, or whatever the case is, because I'm probably engaging conversations with people that are stimulating me to grow further. And so that flexibility of being able to have your time being under your own control without having to seek permission from Mr. So-and-so or Madam So-and-so at work and expecting a different element. I think that is one of the privileges that I love about it. But the ultimate privilege for me when it comes to entrepreneurship is the ability to get to a point of fulfillment. I think I say to many people, this is possibly my favorite feeling, being fulfilled. And being fulfilled comes from knowing that, I've given my all, and this is how I feel after after giving my all. Remember, an entrepreneur is a servant. You serve the community, you serve your clientele. And when your clientele comes and says thank you, or you see the change in your client, in your client after your impact, I think that sense of fulfillment hits home. You might get it in the work that you do when you're in the corporate space, but I think it doesn't always directly come to you. It goes to the person who delivered it. If it's a Mercedes-Benz that you're building, by the way, good choice of cars that you are using as your references. If it's an AMG that you've built and you're the mechanic and you're behind the scenes, you're not going to get the gratification from the person who actually drives it. The person who drives it will thank the salesperson. The salesperson might not even have a clue how it was put together, the sleepless nights you had. But when you're an entrepreneur, one of the things that I love is that the person who sends the gratitude, you are able to get it because there's that direct relationship that's there that I find to be impactful, and I find that to be fulfilling for me. So those are some of the roses in the thorn garden of Uncle TJ, in the Uncle TJ thorn garden.
Yeah. You've been in business now for a while.
Yeah.
We're not all built the same, especially coming from being an employee. So, someone else could be a salesperson and now they're an entrepreneur. Not only do you become the salesperson, but you become the salesperson, the marketing person, the HR, you are everything to yourself. In your view, what is the one thing, Andrew, that you underestimated before you started your business, and now it is the number one thing that you have to do, and if you don't do that, you have no business?
I think the number one thing, particularly in business, is consistency. And I think that is one of the critical skills. And now we can talk of consistency in sales, in consistency in marketing, consistency in service delivery, consistency in quality. But I want to just call it consistency. You've got to be disciplined to be consistent. You cannot afford to be one day you are good, one day you're not. One day you're selling, the next day you're not. One day you are crossing the T's and dotting the I's, the next day you're not. I think one of the critical things that I underestimated then, I'll think, okay, I can sell on Monday and then sell the next Monday. If I do 10 calls on Monday, that should carry me through the week. And I found that to be one of the biggest mistakes I did. And now I'm very intentional about being consistent. If I'm going to do it, even if it means I call at least one person per day and let them know about my work, that's all I'm going to do. But at least every day, every single day, and that goes for a Sunday too for me. If it's my day of rest, I find a way to do it, and I just make sure that it's scheduled, or it's planned for, and it's there's that discipline that I built within my operations within the business. That's my one.
My one is around measurements.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I learned that skill. It's a skill that I'm still sharpening.
Yeah.
But basically, when you're running a business, as an entrepreneur, whatever that you're going to be doing, you have to measure it.
Yeah.
What are you pouring in, and what are you going to be getting?
Yeah.
And is that what you desire? And if you're not measuring, then you actually don't know what you're doing. So for that reason, this outcome here could be skewed. But if you're measuring and you're consistently measuring, taking your other action there, when the result is now going the other way around, you can tweak whatever that you need to tweak. If the results now is shooting high, you can tweak again.
Yeah.
Right. And that, for me, that's what business is all about. So thanks a lot
I love that. And it's very, very apt in you highlighting that. In fact, there's this a management principle, what gets measured gets done. So if you're not measuring it, it's not getting done. And if you're not doing anything, then you're just hoping that something will happen. And as we say, hope is not a strategy, right? So got to work around
By
that.
the way, that's actually a book. I think John Doe wrote that book. What measures get done? Something like that. Yeah, it's a book that's on my shelf. Yeah, Measure What Matters. That's the name of the book.
What matters? Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, having spoken about books, any favorite books or business books that you're reading now or that you have read since we last met, and that has made you to be a little bit more clever than where you were?
No, I've repeated a book, Who Moved My Cheese? And I'll tell you why. There have been so many changes over the last couple of years that I find. Yeah,
that's been rough.
It's insane. And so I read it again to remind me that you cannot get comfortable in one place and you cannot be fixated on one thing and you cannot, lose sight of what you're after. And of course, that is critical for you to look at. So Who Moved My Cheese is my number one recommendation right now. It's a very short book, but keeps you in check in terms of what you need to be focused on and being able to then work through it. It's funny, I was telling my brother recently that I never grew to be an animation person. In fact, those people who used to watch cartoons, don't call me, I wasn't that guy. I used to drive bricks, but when I just read that book, it wouldn't be my typical one, but it just strikes the point home very succinctly and clearly. And so Who Moved My Cheese is my number one go-to business book. And yes, it applies in life, but I think in business, particularly when you're dealing with change.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, any other questions that you might have in the comments there, you can hit us with any of those comments. This is all to inspire and educate you, and educating myself as well. As I speak now to Andrew, there's lots of value that I am getting. I'm writing them down here. If you're enjoying it, you're most welcome to subscribe so that you can know more. Andrew, if you had to look at your younger self, brother,
yeah,
at the time when you went in 19 into the same room with what you now know today, the people that you have met, the countries where you have gone, the opportunities that you have missed because of lack of skills and so on.
Yeah.
What advice would you give that younger self?
Ooh. I think it's the same advice I would give myself today. And I think it's the reminder that I want to give to myself often, because I think there are so many other, insecurities that creep in. But I think the advice will be coined in the words, there is no passion to be found in playing small, in settling for a life less than the one that you are capable of living. I think we're very capable of doing a lot more, and sometimes we end up settling for very little. And I think it was very heavy on early on in my upbringing, or at least just trying to, this is fine. No, there's no passion to be found in playing small. Let's not, let's do big. Let's go big, and yes, be prepared to take the big falls. But what if you get the big wins? So
yeah, I like it. What? Then this is my last question to you, man. Yeah. I've started divorcing myself from the word success, because I think that lots of people always attach success to material things, and I'm not about that. I love material stuff. Awesome, amazing. I like what they bring to you and how you feel around yourself. But my latest thing is being fruitful.
Yeah.
And fruitful for me is exactly what you have done in the Toastmaster game. So you have gone in, you have been fed, so you were fruitful to yourself, and now you became fruitful to others, and others are being fruitful to others. So you're like a seed, you're like baby seeds, right?
Yeah.
But because we don't have a word that we can use to be fruitful, I'm just going to ask this question here. I'm going to spend some time thinking about how do I ask this question again. But what does success look like for you? Maybe I can just say, what does being fruitful mean to you?
Like,
Yeah, maybe I can.
so I would have earlier, because I've already shared this, I would have said it's fulfillment. When you know you're content and you're at your happier self. That's what fulfillment would be. Fulfillment would be that. But maybe to not sound like a broken record, which again, like I said, fulfillment is my optimum answer. But let's just say they take that away. I think I would describe it as having a healthy network of people. A healthy network of people.
That is deep and difficult.
Yeah, a healthy network of people. That's what I think being fruitful would mean to me at this point in time. It encompasses a.
Where do you find these people? Because people are what is the word? Fickle. People change their minds and based on where they are in life, so they evolve.
Correct. And just as well as you do. So I think the biggest mindset shift that we need to make is that we need to have, your best friend at the age of 8 is supposed to still be your best friend at the 28, and then you're like, we've been best friends for 20 years. Can you believe it? No, this is not a poster. This is not a magazine. Or caption that you want to build. You're looking for people who are evolving with you. And when you evolve, I think somebody said this to me some years back. In any case, some people grow you, or they're there in your life for a season. Some people come in to help you grow, and some people leave you to keep you growing. And so once we understand that, I think we're able to grow into that space. And where do we find these people? We find these people in the spaces of our interests. If I have interest in property and I want a network of people in that space, I definitely will find them in the conferences where we've got such environments. If I'm interested in people who are in the networking space, you're probably going to find me by the golf course. If you're going to be looking for people who are looking to have a really good time and forget about who they are, I'll probably find them in a tavern. The point is, if I'm looking for spiritual people or religious people, I'm probably going to find them in a religious environment. So I think it's being clear on what are you looking out for, and then what's the avenue to get to that particular place. And once you look at that from that perspective, I find my tribe, as you would call it, I would assume.
Thanks, brother. I think we're going to leave it here, Mr. CEO. You are the 44, right?
Yeah,
correct.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. So you are for us who don't know 44. You are number 44 CEO of Southern Africa, coming through obviously to lead and inspire and make sure that the Toastmaster leads. But I've enjoyed my conversation here today, in terms of how best you can actually become an entrepreneur, and seeing you coming from where you're coming from, I get goosebumps on where you're going to be going, because you are evolving, and as you evolve, you're embracing that, and so are you growing in the process. And I think that's what all of us should embrace. So, ladies and gentlemen, if this information has been grateful, this man here, he is everywhere on social media as Andrew Tsuru, and he is everywhere on social media as well as the eHub. And if being in the eHub is your thing, plug in, start learning. If it's being a Toastmaster, you want to get rid of the gibberish, get involved. Obviously, Andrew leads, right, Southern Africa, but you had it. In your local branches, there is someone that you can reach out to. And don't be scared. Do it. There's actually a book that's called I think it's called Do It Whilst You're Scared or something like that. But Google it anyways. It is your boy, TJ. Any other closing words, Mr. Tro?
I think, thank you for the conversation. I again enjoyed it, and I think it's long overdue. We must have this we must schedule a monthly element to it. But to your subscribers and to the TJ tribe particularly, I think thank you for engaging us to this point. Uncle TJ can be rough on the edges, but hey, he means well. I think that's how I know him by now. And don't worry, you've got this. You've got this journey. It's yours to win. It's yours to make it work. Victory or the credit belongs to the men in the arena. So let's get into the arena, leave the terraces.
100%. Thanks a lot. And we will catch you on the next video.